Hey everyone, welcome back to the True Blue Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Succardi. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Podcast True Blue. And that's because True Blue Podcast wasn't available, so I went with the next best thing. So happy Halloween. This is going to be a little bit of a different episode. I'm just going to pretty much talk about Halloween and how cool it is. I will have a self-care tip though, and we're going to read some poetry from Robert Frost. And then I'm going to get to talk about the Misfits later. For the True Blue playlist, instead of giving you a song, I'm going to talk about the Misfits. So I'm very excited about that. So it's Halloween, October 31st. I'm just sitting here. I have a lamp on. That's it. You know, my dog's chilling. It's nice and quiet. I wanted to do an episode on Halloween. So I thought, hey, this would be great. I'll just, it's kind of a chill year. I'll just do a podcast episode, probably watch some fucking horror movies and shit, listen to some Misfits. It'd be a good day. It'd be a good night. In fact, I even bought 12 Hits from Hell on vinyl at Astro Zombie. Shout out to my homie Mike. And yeah, just, why not, right? It's fucking Halloween. I don't own it. And it's great. It's cool. It's got a really cool color yellow vinyl. And I don't really get into color vinyl. I mean, it's awesome, but I don't like look for it, is what I mean. But this is so dope. I love the whole layout, from the album art to the vinyl, even the insert. So really, really dope. And yeah, it's fucking Halloween. Fucking Halloween, how cool. I love seeing everyone on Instagram posting pics with, them dressing up or their kids. So cool. And, I'm going to get right into it. It's what I want to talk about in this episode is why I love Halloween and what I love about it. I just think it's so cool that there's a holiday where you get candy and you dress up. I mean, I couldn't believe that as a kid. I'm like, fuck it, this is awesome. This is a holiday? All right, cool. It's in fucking October, the best, fall month, hell yeah. And just the spirit behind it, and, just seeing people dress up and, again, the parades at school and, people, decorating their homes and shit and just, the fun, kind of spirit, the ghost stories, that whole theme. It's so cool. There's something so kind of wholesome about it to me, and also really cool. And, it can go to definitely different levels with horror genre, the music part and, all of it. But yeah, I was so wow, that's so cool. This is a holiday. And I can remember going out as a kid with my mom and my sister, and then with my friends, and just so many great memories, getting candy and just hanging out and dressing up. And I remember one year I went as George Bush. We had a George Bush mask, and people at my school, the parents and teachers, they all loved it. I was like, cool. Everyone loves it. Awesome. And then next year he wasn't president anymore, and I went as retired George Bush. So I had a fisherman's hat and a fisherman, a fishing pole and shit. And it wasn't as, well received. I don't think I really cared as much. I was just like, all right, that's what, it was my mom and grandmother's idea. I'm like, fuck it, whatever. It was, I kind of knew it was kind of beating a dead horse, but whatever. It was just so random too. Retired George Bush. I mean, it's so stupid. But also really cool. Just sort of funny to me. How that was their idea. Fuck it, let's just use the mask and get him a fucking Fisher Price pole and let's just do it. I don't think it was Fisher Price, but still. And then one year I was younger, I think, and I had just read the Three Musketeers and I loved it. So I wanted to be one of the Three Musketeers, and my mom and grandmother, they were like, sure, whatever, that's cool. So they dressed me up as one of the Three Musketeers. And I didn't care if I didn't, I wasn't looking for friends to be the other two. I didn't even think about it at all. I just thought, this is what I want to do. And at the parade at school, everyone thought I was Zorro. And I was trying to tell them I'm one of the Three Musketeers. How bizarre, right? I have to tell them what the hell I am. But it's a credit to just my mom and grandmother, how they were like, all right, that's what you want to be. And that's another thing I love about Halloween is you can be creative like that. If you want to be one of the Three Musketeers, a character in a book or whoever, I mean, that's what is just so cool about it to me. But yeah, those are two that I can recall that were kind of wild. just weird and funny. Um, and yeah, I just, I remember all like as a kid, we would always go have pizza that on a Halloween night. I barely eat any Halloween candy. I mean, like obviously in the coming days, yeah, for sure. Shout out to Almond Joys. Shout out to Peanut Chews. Shout out to Baby Ruths. Shout out to Butterfingers and Kit Kat. I will say Kit Kats though. I've had Kit Kats that aren't always good, but when you get a good Kit Kat, it's fucking really good. So yeah, some really good candies. I remember giving some to my mom and like grandmother and shit. And remember those places, those houses that would give you the full candy bars? Oh my god! I mean, you'd see them in the grocery store or at the Five and Dime, and okay, whatever. But when they're handing them out on Halloween, it was just like a whole nother level. You're like, oh my! It was practically Christmas. They were giving, you know what I mean? You like fucking looked at those people like, oh my, it's amazing. We hit the jackpot here. That was such a fun thing. And it's funny too because maybe I'm just crazy, but I always remember being like, I'm not gonna forget this house. I'm like, I'm gonna come here next year. And I can remember there were a couple houses on Hickory Street, which is the street over from me when I lived in Jersey. And they had full size candy bars, pretty dope. And those glow sticks that you would wear at night because on the East Coast it gets so dark so damn early. They were like green and like orange and shit. It's just so cool. I mean, and it falls. It's a holiday right in the middle of fall, so like the leaves, the nostalgia, the hooded sweatshirt weather, like it's so cool. Like it's just one of those holidays that I absolutely love, and just the whole theme and everything behind it. So, just wanted to talk about it a little bit and just kind of get into a couple of those memories, and I think it also ties into my self-care tip. So I'll get into that here. And that is to not be afraid to be young again and to feel good and to dress up and to have that spirit, because life is short and crazy, and this has been a nuts, crazy year. And I wanted to highlight that because Halloween gives you an opportunity to kind of just have fun. And I'm like, what a cool, just overall vibe, and then being so into Halloween, I just feel like that's kind of like an underlining thing for me is just to have that spirit, Obviously, you're a responsible adult, but to have that spirit is what I wanted to really highlight here. And Halloween's a great example of that. So, you don't necessarily have to dress up, but just, feeling good and just seeing the whole vibe and, getting into it. However you do is just something that I wanted to share with it. So yeah, don't be afraid to feel young again. It's super important. All right, so we're going to get on to the poetry section here. So I chose these two poems from Robert Frost. The first one is called October. All right, here we go. O hushed October morning mild, thy leaves have ripened to the fall. Tomorrow's wind, if it be wild, should waste them all. The crows above the forest call, tomorrow they may form and go. O hushed October morning mild, begin the hours of this day slow, make the days seem to us less brief, hearts not averse to being beguiled. Beguile us in the way you know, release one leaf at break of day, at noon release another leaf, one from our trees, one far away. Retard the sun with gentle mist, enchant the land with amethyst. Slow, slow, for the grape's sake, if they were all, whose leaves already are burnt with frost, whose clustered fruit must else be lost, for the grape's sake along the wall. Just love that. It reads so well. I mean, just the whole vibe behind it. It even just like the language. It has that like folklore feel to it. It obviously it's called October, and it was one of my favorites here that I was reading. I'm like, just thought it was really cool, especially how it ends. It says, "Whose leaves already are burnt with frost, whose clustered fruit must else be lost, for the grape's sake along the wall." I just really dig that, something about it. All right, so the next and last one that I wanted to share with you guys is actually called Gathering Leaves. Spades take up leaves, no better than spoons, and bags full of leaves are light as balloons. I make a great noise of rustling all day, like rabbit and deer running away. But the mountains I raise elude my embrace, flowing over my arms and into my face. I may load and unload again and again, till I fill the whole shed, and what have I then? Next to nothing for weight, and since they grew duller, from contact with earth, next to nothing for color. Next to nothing for use, but a crop is a crop, and who's to say where the harvest shall stop? How cool. I mean, geez, it's like so fucking appropriate. I feel like I'm in this as like leaves and shit. I don't know, this was one of my favorites, Gathering Leaves. Just the way it flows, the way it rhymes. It's a fun read. It sounds weird, but I feel like as I'm reading it, it's sort of fun. I see myself in this. But the mountains I raise elude my embrace, flowing over my arms and into my face. It's so fucking cool. Next to nothing for weight, and since they grew duller, from contact with earth, next to nothing for color. Next to nothing for use, but a crop is a crop, and who's to say where the harvest shall stop? Fucking so cool. Check that out. Robert Frost, Gathering Leaves in October. All right, now let's get into the True Blue playlist. So, I wanted to talk about the Misfits. I mean, it's Halloween. I can't think of any other band that's more synonymous with Halloween than the Misfits. And growing up in New Jersey, being a kid there, I mean, the Misfits, I can remember my sister being into Guns N' Roses when we were kids. She had the VHS of Guns N' Roses in Japan. I believe it was Japan, and it was a Use Your Illusion one, so it was like a 2 VHS set. And one of the songs that they did, it was Duff McKagan singing that Guns N' Roses did, and it was Attitude by the Misfits. And I had heard of the Misfits then, so I'm listening to the song, and he's saying, like, you got some attitude, there's probably a whore. Like, he's saying these words. I'm like, this is awesome. This is like in your fucking face, and I just remember being like, this is pretty cool. And I like Guns N' Roses too, but this definitely was like, wow, I didn't expect it. It really stood out to me. So then fast forward years and years later, when I was a teenager, my friend Brian Kellner, shout out to Brian Kellner, he was really into the Misfits, and he'd always have like a boombox, and he would have a Misfits tape. And listening to it with him, and just growing up in New Jersey, getting into punk rock, and then hearing about this band, the Misfits, that, I mean, geez, they made horror movies sound cool. Like, I always thought that could have been a really kind of like tricky thing to make, the whole horror thing. Like, it could have come off kind of corny. It could have, but they did such a great job. I just remember being like, this is so cool. And I just loved how, like, it was hardcore punk, but it was so different. Like, kids who, like, maybe weren't into the hardcore scene real deep, or even the punk scene, could like the Misfits. And kids who were really into the hardcore punk scene, they were just one of those bands. And I just loved the whole theme. Like, I thought it was so cool. And I mean, I like horror movies, and having an older brother, I saw a lot as a kid. But just listening to the Misfits, it's like they mention these movies I never heard of, and when I see sometimes, I'm like scanning through it, wherever online, I'm like, oh shit, that's a Misfits song. Oh, that's a Misfits lyric. So I was really taken by that, and just that they were from Jersey, and just the Crimson Ghost. There were just so many things I just associated and thought, this is so dope. Like, what a cool band. And then hearing, of course, Attitude, I just thought, wow, how cool. Like, this song is awesome. No wonder Guns N' Roses covers this song. And then really just tying it to hanging out with my friends, skateboarding, getting into punk rock and hardcore, and like the Misfits are like always there with like all my friends, and just getting into it so much. And I honestly never thought I'd be so into it, because again, I like horror, but I'm not in love with it, right? But I do enjoy watching it, especially around at this time of year. But just listening to the Misfits and being like, wow, this is so cool what they're singing about. And then, of course, just like it's all horror themed, but just the lyrics, as with any kind of music, you can make it your own. So it's so cool that, Misfits and just like their lyrics, their sound, their image, it all just was like home run. It was just all hitting on like all cylinders for me. And then in 1997, it's probably like a year after like really like getting into them. I probably was listening to Misfits probably like 96. They just had their box set out, which was like a coffin, and it had all these cool ass, like they had this insert, and flyers and pictures, and it just looked so cool. They were these two, like, with Danzig and Doyle and Jerry, they're all like big dudes. I thought, wow, these are big dudes. Like, this is cool. This is even cooler. They like look like superheroes, kind of. Like they have an image. They're definitely not pussies. So, seeing that box set, and then when they reformed with Michael Graves, I loved it. I think it's awesome. I was so like I was so kind of just new, like listening to them, and then hearing the American Psycho album. It's so good. And then the Famous Monsters. I was kind of surprised that I liked it so much, but they're both great, to be honest with you. And just getting to see them, I saw them a bunch. I saw them with H2O and Sick of It All at the Birch Hill. Saw them at the Alive and Well Hardcore Fest. It was so cool. I've seen them a time or two after that, but those were the two most memorable ones because they were like right in 97. And then that Birch Hill show was cool. That was awesome. And then another thing too is they had a compilation called Violent World, and all these hardcore bands and ska punk bands covered Misfit songs, and there was like Snapcase, Earth Crisis, 108, Sick of It All, Far Side, Goldfinger's on there, Pennywise is on there, and some of the songs are so fucking good. And it was so cool for me because I got to hear like these bands play Misfit songs and like, definitely put their own influence on them, and all so good. Just made me want to hear more and more of these bands. And I had heard Sick of It All, I'd heard Earth Crisis and Snapcase, but not a lot. Like I didn't have a lot of exposure other than comps. So to hear that they're on this Misfits comp, I thought was so fucking cool. And they're great songs, even to this day. Like one of my favorite comps, and one of the comps I can say got me into punk rock and hardcore, along with the Alive and Well Hardcore, the In-Flight comp, the In-Flight program one that came out from Revelation, and then Victory Style, and then Punkorama and some like local ones, but definitely that Misfits one, Violent World, so dope listening to that, love that. So yeah, just again the style, the sound, the Michael Graves stuff, so good. And it just like they've been just one of those bands that have just been around. So and all my friends listening to them, and I just love the Jersey connection. I love that, like, again, within punk rock, it's embraced. It's the whole horror thing. It's just like, it's cool because it's not about straight edge politics, not about, youth crew, none of that shit. It's just like, fucking talking all kinds of crazy shit with like, with horror stuff, and just, it's so good. Some songs I remember liking at first were, like, that really grabbed me were Bullet, Attitude, Some Kind of Hate, Ghouls Night Out, All Hell Breaks Loose, Earth AD. I remember hearing those songs and being like, wow, this is so good. And then later on, songs like Come Back, such a good fucking song. Love Come Back. One of my favorites, to be honest with you. Theme for a Jackal, Teenagers from Mars, like some of the songs that, like, I just, so good. I mean, I love the Misfits. When I moved out here to New Mexico, they were kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to say. It's hard to explain, but they were like my tie to New Jersey, because they're so New Jersey to me. I can't think of something more New Jersey. People get into their Bruce and their Bon Jovi and shit, But for me, it's the Misfits, and that to me is like home and my youth and the music background and everything. So I'm really excited to just share all this with you guys because, I mean, I love talking about the bands that I love and how I got into them, and it's cool to reminisce about. It's cool to, to think about how far back it goes. It's cool that your friends are like listening to it and they're like getting you into it, and you have such distinct memories of it. It's one of those things that I'm like, wow, I'm very, very grateful. I even now that I think about it, one of my friends, his aunt went to school with the Misfits because they were right there in Lodi, New Jersey, and he had her yearbook, and it was so dope. They were all these Misfits pictures, how they have in like the beginning and like the end of the yearbook, they're just them hanging, so dope. And then their actual, class picture and stuff. It was just really cool. I felt so connected. I'm like, wow, this is like all from New Jersey. So yeah, just a lot of things going back with the Misfits. So there you have it. There's my Misfits rant and a couple things I wanted to mention about them. Some of the songs that I love from them, and then just again, it's Halloween. What better Misfits thing? What better like thing to talk about than the Misfits on Halloween? So I'm happy to be here sharing with you guys. I hope you enjoy this episode. I'll be doing another episode here soon. And yeah, just thanks everyone. Hope you have a happy Halloween. Hope everyone's safe. God bless. And I'll see you guys soon. Peace.